Hello, today is January 27th, 2024. We'll do our disclaimer as we always do. We'll go over our calls and make some predictions. It's my trading plan for Monday, which is January 29th. Remember, I can be completely wrong. Trade at your own risk. Well, here's a reminder of what we said. We had a great setup for gapping down. We said if we gap down, I had a plan. We thought we'd go much lower. And if we didn't, I had no call. Well, we didn't gap down, so there was no call. And when there's no call and you close essentially unchanged, I'm just grateful I didn't make a call. So we didn't get the commonest thing, which was a gap and prompt move outside the day's range. Next most common is close, little change, and big move the next day. Well, we close, little change, so if this plays out, Monday should have a big move. It doesn't always work, but that's pretty rare. So a big move on Monday. These are the patterns I think we'll see next week. Monday should have the early low. This is the pattern with the early high. During the day, we rallied to a new high. MEJT said it wouldn't stick, it would retrace over here, and it did. We got an ultimate sell signal. We traded lower. That satisfies it. These moves up were called false. They retraced. This move down was called false, and that retraced. That's already played out. Here's the daily chart. We now have a bar completely over the upper Bollinger Band, a nearby bar completely under it. That's usually a sign that the top is near, but it doesn't mean it has to happen immediately. We are coming close to some of Christopher Carolan's dates for possible changes in trend. We have one January 31st, and there's a 3-day window, so any day next week falls within that range. It's entirely possible we have a top next week. Now again, if there is a top, it's usually within 3 days of one of these dates, but the converse isn't true. Just because you have a date doesn't mean you have a top. Well, I had a pattern here, possible ending diagonal triangle. If that were true, I don't think we should have hit a new high. So you could fudge a bit and say you're making an expanded flat, but I'm just going to drop this idea. We still have a stilt, we still have a diamond, we could still have a stilt move down. It wouldn't change anything. This isn't as clear a diamond as I usually see, but if we drop immediately, it would still work. But when these things fail, I get suspicious that maybe the whole idea was wrong. It might fail in grand style. And even though it doesn't, the idea for a top here at first doesn't have to fail. I can explain the drop. I can also explain a rally. Now there's no clear-cut way to count this that I see, but if that's wave 1 at 61.8%, wave 3 would equal 100. And if that's the right count, and wave 5 is equal to wave 1 as it often is, it would top out around 49.52. That's if we go up. And what's interesting about that number if you look at what could be wave 5, if that's wave 3 at 100, wave 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be 61.8% of wave 3, and if that's wave 4, you would get balance of the waves right at the same price, 49.52. So if we do go up, the waves balance out in that area. Doesn't mean it's the only area. Doesn't mean you have to work. But it's a beautiful picture if we do go up. Here's your next week's patterns. Monday's pattern has the early low regardless of where we open. Typically it's a rally day with a final hour high. If it's weak instead, more weakness should follow in days to come. Friday closed nearly unchanged, and usually, almost always, leads to a big move on Monday. Now the all-time high Friday was followed by a negative close. In addition, we also closed under multiple prior highs. So if that's maintained in Monday's open, it's a negative pattern. Should lead to lower prices regardless of where we close. Now, if the day is going to be weak, almost always the weakness manifests itself early. So if that's the real thing, we rejected this break to a new high. You'd want an early drop, which is of significant size. But if we gapped and promptly overtook Friday's high, that vitiates the negative pattern. And if that's what happens, there's wave balance around 49.52 cash. Doesn't mean other numbers don't work, but it's a reasonable target. Now, regardless of what happens Monday, I can't count the rally as being over, but the timing is right for a possible high next week. Even if that happens, I think we're going to recover at some time. I still want to see 50.87. So I'm looking for a big move. If the move is down, I think it's going to be obvious early. If the move is going to be up, we should clear this early, ideally by gapping, and we have a target of 49.52. So it's the pattern with the early low. It's usually negative, usually positive, but if it's negative, it can lead to a lot more negativity. And I suspect that we're going to know early in the day, perhaps even well before the open, if we're going to be weak or strong on Monday. And that's today's call.